Hey, it's Tess, content creator, model, presenter, and host of the Tess Talks podcast, on a mission to ignite curiosity. I want to start with an interesting question. Do you think that our collective disconnection from the body, especially the lymphatic system, is part of why so many people today feel burnt out, stuck, or unwell?
Really great point. Yes. Like so much so. If you think about the body as a whole, one part is always speaking to the next. When you look at stress, that's obviously where the body is often sitting in a space of fight or flight. And when you work the lymphatic system, you have to get it into a rest and digest. It's the opposite. So definitely a really strong correlation between burnout, stress, where people are, and how the lymphatic system connects with all of that.
And I think there's no doubt that pretty much everyone listening is either experiencing or has experienced big sensations of stress, very busy lives, crazy society, and then all the physical things on top of it, from things like just being so tired, feeling bloated, just feeling like sluggish and just like not themselves. I feel like there's such common experiences that unfortunately so many of us feel so consistently. And I feel like there's so many like theories and reasons out there around like why this is happening and how to fix it and how to treat it. But I do feel like we don't really commonly speak about the lymphatic system. So why do you think there's such a missing link in wellness incorporating the lymphatic system today?
It's an interesting point, and it's one that is a little bit hard to define at times. I think it comes down to the fact that GPs, general practice, they're trying to be across everything. Nobody can be across everything. So really in general practice, where they're discovering, uncovering, helping people find an issue, they tend to look at things that are a matter of public health. Is there an outbreak of a particular virus or a strain of something, or what's affecting the general picture in public health? But something like the lymphatic system is a part of our anatomy, it's a part of the human body, and so that then becomes something that really would be an area that would need to be seen by a specialist. Now, when you tend to find specialists in the lymphatic system, they're often found inside hospitals and oncology wards, because to know the lymphatic system is to understand that it's broken down to pretty much three parts. You've got lymphatic capillaries and vessels, and you've got lymph nodes, and then you've got deeper lymphoid organs. But when you're looking at all of that when you have cancer, quite often it is in the lymph nodes, and you'll often have to have lymph nodes removed. And that is why you'll tend to find those lymphatic specialists inside hospitals. So as a general picture, whilst it's being lost, is exactly that. And so that's what I'm constantly seeing in people that have got sluggish lymphatic systems, that you don't have to have cancer to have an issue with your lymphatic system. And that's how most people's awareness comes for the lymphatic system, because they or someone they know close to them has had cancer, and that's where the lymphatic system is often, brought to the light of day for someone that had no idea about it before.
You're so right. It's one of those things that it doesn't come up until it's like too late.
Exactly. That's so true.
Which unfortunately is like, I think a lot of, I guess, more wellness related things in this field these days, that people often don't start looking until they're confronted with a reason of having to look.
You're exactly right.
So when was it in your timeline that you realized that this was more than just like a niche wellness trend?
I first came across the lymphatic system like 25 years ago. That's when I first started to learn, and was doing treatments overseas actually. And I realized straight away that this was mind-blowing. I was working on cruise ships, and I found that people who came in were more often than not carrying fluid when you're at sea and you're in a salty environment. And then, of course, often the foods that are on cruise ships, particularly 25 years ago, you've probably got lots of non-perishable goods, because you're at sea for a long time. Your food's not fresh. You can be at sea for days and days on end. And so people eating a high sodium diet, these sorts of things would start to affect their lymphatic system, and they'd start to get swelling and puffiness. And treating these people that would come on for a lymphatic massage or treatment and noticing that things like their rings, they'd come in and they'd say, my ring's so tight, it literally feels like my finger's a sausage, it's going to burst. It's so uncomfortable. And then by the end of a treatment, their rings would be loose. And they'd say, you don't understand. I've been able to take my ring off for years, and now all of a sudden it's come free. So I think I straight away was like, wow, that's amazing. And so that stuck with me. And having seen that from so long ago, then myself I've had tummy issues in my life, and it helped me with digestion and bloating. It's just been so many things that I have seen in small little markers of, wow, this is how the lymphatic system connects here, or there. And then piecing it together to bring together my own method has only, further cemented that fact that this is what people need. And there's such a specialist niche area that just so many people don't know about, and where, as you know, you've been in for a treatment to experience, but education is key.
Yes. I loved that about our session. Like, you really started with the whole educational part. And like, I obviously love that because I love talking about this stuff. But I think it's really important for people to know so they can go home and kind of correlate what they're having in the treatment room to what's happening on their outer life, and how they kind of work together, and how they can continue to kind of like build off what you've just spent an hour and a half, 2 hours kind of working on them with.
Exactly. And it is a very, what's the word? Probably I would say delicate, sensitive system. And if you don't explain to people how it works, people don't get it. So that's also important too. As you just said, it's that understanding is everything.
So let's talk about it then in the simplest of terms. What is the lymphatic system? You just spoke about the 3 differing points of it. So I'd love for you to elaborate and tell our listeners, I guess, the complexities in digestible terms.
I love that. Yeah. So I always just say, I think the important part of understanding the lymphatic system is, first of all, I'm not a nurse, I'm not a doctor. So what I then do is I will break down a very complex system into simple form and great little analogies that help people understand, because at the end of the day, there's no point in trying to flex with big terms. That doesn't help anyone. It's about having it be, really consumable and make sense at the end of the day. So the 3 areas of which I started with, the lymphatic capillaries or lymphatic vessels, they're basically like a tube or a hose which is carrying lymphatic fluid. And that lymphatic fluid is trying to reach a lymph node. And a lymph node is like your filtering station, if you like. And that's basically how, and then they end up working with the deeper lymphatic organs. That's things like your appendix, your spleen, your tonsils, bone marrow. These are all lymphoid organs. But effectively what these 3 things are doing is they're working together to be like your body's own rubbish disposal system or recycling system. It's actually the part of your body that keeps you clean and functioning in a better state. So to think about the lymphatic system, you cannot go without knowing that it affects 3 main areas. So it's your body's front line of immune defense. Your immune system is actually built and housed inside the lymphatic system. You also have it as your body's front line of detoxification. So we know there's other organs like, your kidneys, your liver, that also help detoxify and filter. But first of all, it's already gone through this amazing filtering system that is your lymphatic system. And then third amazing role of the lymphatic system is it's responsible for the homeostasis, the balance of fluid within your body and fluid regulation. So how much fluid your body wants to let go of versus how much fluid your body needs to retain. And so that's why most people, when they think about the lymphatic system, tend to think of puffiness, because fluid creates puff. And that's what it does. It's working out if your lymphatic system is stagnated or not flowing properly, or as we like to say, the drainage points are clogged, you'll end up with puffy, swelling, or inflammation.
It's so interesting how much it actually correlates to, because I think in the past when I've thought about it, I've really just thought about like, oh, maybe your key like lymph node areas where, we see online where to tap before we start doing any like, lymphatic kind of treatment. and like stimulate it. But I've never really thought about how it's actually like linked to our organs and how like it's part of our bone marrow and like all these things, like how it's really, and as you said when I saw you, like throughout our whole body, like as you said, it runs all throughout our skin, like underneath. I'm sure you can, yeah, which blew my mind because I think we kind of have just isolated it too. Oh, the lymph system is just like there. But really you're saying that it like is covering the whole body.
Absolutely it is. And even things like they only found in more recent years, from when I first studied 25 years ago, they're only now, or in the last about decade or so, have found there's a lymphatic system in the brain, which is literally
wow.
So the lymphatic system runs through, you've got it in your gut, it's called the GALT. So through the stomach and also inside the brain, and everyone knows the brain gut connection there. So thinking that there's lymphatic systems found within those two areas as well. And the majority of the lymphatic system is found superficially, just at the surface of the skin. And that is why it's really important that it's activated with a really gentle, nurturing touch, which is what so many people get wrong.
Interesting. I think we should definitely delve into some tips as we go on.
Absolutely.
So that you can clarify some misconceptions. But it's just so fascinating. And I think also because like it's so correlated, as you say, to detoxification. And I've always thought about how the body like processes and detoxes and through the liver. And I've never actually really thought about how the first line is through that lymph system. And obviously detoxification is like one of the most important functions in the body, I would say, because you're getting rid of so many toxins and preventing illness and things. So what would be like some of the most common things that you would be seeing in people when you're seeing like this buildup of lymph blockage?
Bloating, number one. Yep, that distension. If it's not, I say bloating is normal to an extent. Everyone's stomach goes up and down. There's times where your stomach is flatter than others, particularly with women. Our colon is by far longer than a male's colon because it's got to weave in and out the reproductive system. Like we are more complex. Females are more complex.
Yeah, we are more advanced. No.
Exactly right. But for that, it actually means that, all the systems are having to work that little bit harder.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, what can I say? We're just the more superior gender. No, I'm kidding.
Exactly. Where do we go?
Won't go there.
Complex for the right reasons. Yeah. It just means everything's a little bit harder for us sometimes, but we get there.
So when someone comes to see you and they're experiencing, let's say, like lethargy or bloating or puffiness, what would be your first kind of like recommendation? Like where do you kind of start when you look at someone?
Always say to people the importance of dry brushing. It's not just exfoliation and it's not just fluff. It is actually very powerful and one of the most simple and effective ways that you can start moving lymphatic circulation, activating that lymph flow. You did say before, Tess, what are the most common things that you see in someone that has a slow lymphatic system or issues with their lymphatic system? And I always just say that if you just are feeling a bit meh, you just know you just not quite right. You're not
We
sick.
all know that feeling.
You all know that feeling. It's like when you feel like that, book a lymphatic ASAP because your lymphatic system is doing all those things for you. And you might have a low-level virus sitting in your body that hasn't reared its head yet. You just need to help the body what the body does best. And so when you're just feeling, not quite right, that's one sign that you need some lymphatic help. Other things like itchy skin, headaches, brain fog, each part of the body always works best when it's working in harmony with the next part. So I like to think of it as your body is like this amazing map and all the different parts. There's all these little treasure, little gold pots of gold throughout the body. But what is that's connecting all of that map to make it all work? And sometimes the body gets a bit lost. So what are the things that you can do to help it? But really a great place to start is your lymphatic system because that's even when you go to a doctor, a GP that has said they're doing an amazing job, but they can't do everything. And I've had GPs as clients and they'll tell me they might have been 10 pages is all they covered on the lymphatic system in their entire years and years and years of training. And that's because, again, everyone, they're generalists. They've got to be across everything. Well, you can't know about a specialist field when you're a generalist. And so when you go to a doctor and they're looking at all these things, one of the first things they do is they feel your glands. This is actually your major lymph node area. You've got lymph nodes that run under the chin, all the way under the jawbone, around the front and back of the ear and down the neck. If these glands are swollen, it means the body has an infection and there's something going on. So they're checking the lymphatic system. Aside from that, they'll often go and have bloods tested. You're looking at red blood and white blood. Well, white blood is linked to the lymphatic system. So it's there. It's not just fluff. It's not just what's this thing. It's not a fad. It's real. It's our anatomy.
So interesting. And I love so much about what you said about how you kind of look at the body. I remember reading this analogy that was like looking at the body like a garden. So you think of our body as like the roots, but often we just look at it as the branches and the trees and the leaves and what's happening on top, but looking at all the roots about how it's all connected and it's all going on like under the soil.
Like that. I've not heard that one, but that's so true.
Yeah. And it was just, for me, it was just like a really clear, like kind of, vivid kind of picture of how I've always tried to look at the body and how important it is as we're learning more and more, I feel like, with every year that goes on. So before we get into like some of like the tools, I know you briefly touched on dry brushing. Let's talk about the Beetox Method. This is your very unique and specific method of how you treat your clients. So how is what you do unique and different to, let's say, just any standard lymphatic massage?
I think the main thing that I would say there is I look at the body as a whole, as we've just spoken about a couple of times. And to get the best out of anything, you've got to give respect to the things going on around it. So when we look at the lymphatic system, I say the Beetox Method is underpinned with the power of lymphatics. But we're looking at things like, where are you when you come in on the day? Where are your stress levels at? Your lifestyle. So getting a greater picture as to who someone is when they come in, and literally looking at how we can help speak to that or refer on to other people in other fields. Again, our specialty is lymphatics, but it's looking and appreciating someone for all the different parts that make up who they are. And so our signature treatments, which is where it all started, comes down to really getting someone to get into the parasympathetic nervous system, getting out of that fight or flight, because we know, as we started this podcast with, that if you can have someone in a more relaxed state and that stress is switched off even for the moment while they're on the bed, it's much easier to get into someone's lymphatic system and create flow. If you think about lymph as that healthy river flowing within you, and it can get blocked and things at times, it's fluid, but how does it flow? Well, flowing needs to be ease, it needs to be peaceful, it needs to be considered, nurturing. And so the Beetox Method started from coming from a place of nurture and realizing that, why do people that have experienced lymphatic treatments before, it's only been in a clinical environment or a hospital ward? And so how do you care for people in a way that feels beautiful, that's not necessarily that wham bam thank you ma'am Hollywood style of lymphatic treatment, which we do also offer. But I just think that understanding that part of, human nature, modern day stresses, the world we live in today, often what we need is less is more, and there is complexity in simplicity. So even though that might feel like to some people this is so light and it's nothing, it's not until you have a treatment and you understand the frameworks behind how we deliver things in this really blissful, gentle, nurturing way is what people really need today.
Totally. You're so right. It's really that like rest and restore places where like true healing and recovery can actually happen. And so it makes so much sense that if we're not feeling that when we go into any form of treatment, then how are we going to get the full like benefit of it? Like, how is our body going to succumb and appreciate that healing, that movement, if it's stuck in a state of like regimen and stress? And I noted that so much. And I said that to you when you arrived here today, is that how I felt like during and after my first treatment with you was that like the sense of relaxation I got from it was a whole lot deeper than I get from most massages. And I think that's because of the way you go through it all, and you start it with like this kind of meditation and some breath work, and it just really helps. And it's not like rushing through it. Like, when you go to like a standard massage and they're like, take 3 breaths and we'll start. So you're like, and then you go, it's like very tailored, very slow, and you really allow that time to get that person into a state where they can really receive like the full treatment, which is quite unique. in this day and
Thank you.
age.
And it's interesting you say that, because some people will say, you know, oh, that's a long time. Can you do it any quicker?
Yeah.
And our answer is always, do you know what? Your lymphatic system is a part of your internal biology and it's nature.
Yeah.
And we can't rush nature. You
Yeah.
can't speed up a sunrise or a sunset. And your lymphatic system works tirelessly for you every day. It is a very slow moving system because it doesn't have a pump like the heart does. So the manual activation that we provide in a treatment is what really helps you, but you can't speed it up. So the treatments do tend to be longer, which is also why they are not cheap treatments. And this is where I think when you said before, what are some of the ways that people can learn or know, this is why I love doing this sort of thing, because I know that they're not always accessible for everyone. And so how can I help educate and inform people and give people some tips as to what they can do at home to help themselves? Because anytime you can help activate your lymphatic system, you're helping your body.
All right. Well, I'd love to talk about some then. Obviously, there's the classic dry brushing, which I feel like all of us have seen on social media. What would be, I guess, your favorites? And then some others. You know, gua sha is also very popular. You gifted me one before that I've actually never seen before.
Yes.
Lymphatic cups, I believe they're called. So give us the down low on all the tools and the things that we can do.
Amazing. So to support the lymphatic system needs movement. As I touched on before, it does not have a pump. So that is anything from any movement at all. People say, what exercise is best? I'm like, movement is great. So anything from, you know, walking, rebounding is actually really good. And the reason for that is lymphatic system loves vibration. So they've said that little rebounders or vibration plates are really great.
What about those trampolines that people like jump
exactly.
on? You know, Tony Robbins is always
like in the 1980s. You're like, what's that? Amazing. Like really good. So they are great. And then for tools, brushing is great. Gua sha, most people have seen all over lockdown, TikTok, everyone was gua shaing their faces off, which is amazing. Except the only thing with gua sha is it can be really hard with your technique and how much pressure you use. And so that's one thing that's really interesting, because if you look at the lymphatic system again and knowing the majority is just at the surface of the skin, to drain that lymphatic fluid, you can't use a downward pressure. And this is where the little gift that I've given to you is those lymphatic cups are amazing, because they use what's called negative suction. So they are lifting the tissue, which is allowing you to draw the tissue up and literally draw the fluid towards a lymph node where you want it to go. So there's less room for user error and better efficacy in result, because gua sha you can press too hard and then you're actually squashing or flattening those little lymphatic capillaries, which is slowing down lymphatic flow. Whereas when you draw and you lift, that helps the flow of everything underneath the tissue. I think you can, a visual, I always just think about lifting and then allowing things to flow, or squashing and there being no room for flow.
And you know what I love that you said about these lymphatic cups? They're like a Botox replacement. Give me some of that, especially pre-wedding vibes, like breastfeeding here, can't get Botox. Exactly. Like that is the shit we want.
And heaps of our clients actually love them for that. They say, you know, I still love my Botox, but this allows me to brighten or extend things a little bit further, or even if I've, you know, I'm away on holiday and, you know, had a few extra wines and you're feeling that puffiness in your face, or like me today, feeling like hay fever's gotten you and you're a little bit nasally. When you literally get those cups, you know, around the nose area and draw them out to the side, back down, you can literally open up everything.
Can you walk us through then some strategies? Because like there's so many videos online and on TikTok and Instagram about how people are dry brushing and gua shaing, and I feel like there are so many mixed messages, and I do see like experts jump in the comments and like, oh, that doesn't look right, and as you're saying like, oh, that's too hard, the pressure's too much. So what would be like, I guess, your basic recommendations for people that are going to like take some of these tools home with them?
I would say first of all, with brushing, it's amazing and it's wonderful that lots of people now know that you generally brush towards the heart. That's a great rule of thumb, but it's not always true. So my point on that would be either know where the lymph nodes are and brush towards that, or if in doubt, yes, brushing towards the heart is best, but that's probably the first tip to know. And like anything, you can start somewhere and I'm a big believer in progress over perfection. So no one needs to feel they need to be perfect or not getting started because they're worried they'll do it wrong. We only learn through doing, as we were also saying earlier.
Yeah.
And so with that, get in there, give it a go, see how it feels. Generally brushing upwards towards the heart is a great place to start.
And stimulating all the key
and
areas
stimulating
first.
the key areas. And then, for people that perhaps just listening today and don't have a visual, it's really great to, we call it the Spock in lymphatic training terms. And so you split. Some people say, well, can't do that, but you generally split your two fingers.
Oh, yeah, that I struggle with that.
Yeah. And then you get used to doing it after a while and they just split 2 and 2.
Struggle, there we go.
And then, I know it feels so weird, and then you just anchor them either side, 2 in front of your ear, 2 behind your ear, and doing circular movements and sort of pulling down at the end of that circular movement is a great way to open up major lymph nodes through there. And the reason I like to also share this one with almost everyone is if you have babies flying and quite often they get that pressure and they don't know how to clear the pressure in their ears. I've been on flights before and helped crying babies, and it just unblocks the tube through the nose to the ear and down and helps open up all those lymph nodes to drain away.
Oh my God, that is a great hack.
Great hack. It literally is. It's one of the best.
Oh my, and also it's free. Like,
and
you can just use your
there's
hands.
just these little things once you know about the lymphatic system. It's like, I just wish that this was taught in schools in general health.
I love it so much. And also what I loved, some really good advice you gave me is, I personally think sometimes it can all feel a bit too overwhelming doing all the wellness things. It's like my whole morning routine could honestly take 4 hours if I wanted it to.
Right.
So you were like little pieces. You don't have to go and like dry brush your whole body every day. So just do like one limb per day.
Yes, Tess. It's so true.
Love that.
It's like bite-sized pieces. Let's go. Don't try and do it all. But little bit by little bit, we get there. Progress over perfection.
I actually read somewhere that your lymphatic system moves twice as much fluid through your blood than your blood. Is that right?
So I think you and I were chatting about this too. So what it is that your lymphatic system has double the volume, actually more than double the volume than red blood inside of you. So when people think, oh, this, lymphatic, what is it, lymphatic fluid? It's like, when you know that, you know it's real. More than double the volume of lymphatic fluid inside of you than red blood.
Wow.
Yeah, you are. It's abundant within you. And I'll share this here. It's something that I don't often share in this sort of forum, but I will, because I think it's really, really important. And that is, I could be telling you this and, it's that whole thing, where do you get your information from? But when I explain how this is so, it just makes sense for everyone. So like if you get a graze on your arm and you look down to see if there's any blood there, and there's no blood there, but it's wet, nobody thinks what that wet is. Like if I was to ask you what, obviously not you because you're a health coach, you know a lot, but normally if you say to someone what is under the skin, people will say blood, bones, muscle, I don't know, fat. Nobody says lymphatic fluid, and yet right at the surface of the skin, before anything else, that wet is your lymphatic fluid. It's a clear fluid, sometimes milky, and you'll see it if they're, example, it's gross, but squeezing a pimple. As a beauty therapist background, that's something I've done lots of over the years.
I mean, there's someone listening who finds
Exactly
it really
right.
like satisfying.
So it's exactly right. But there is, then you'll have the pussy bit is milky and sometimes yellow if there's bacteria or infection in there. And that's because your lymphatic system's job is to draw away the toxins. It's helping to keep the body clean and clear. It's removing the bacteria, toxins, virus, pathogens, metabolic waste, anything the body doesn't want or need. It's the lymphatic system's job. So that's what it's doing. So that's why you will see that lymphatic fluid where there is an infection, or if the skin's broken, it's always lymph before blood.
I had no idea that was lymphatic fluid.
Exactly. No one, but neither did I. Remember learning about this years ago, and I was like, what?
Yeah.
How did I not know? How did I not know that?
Yeah, I feel like it sounds like it must be really like common, basic kind of like knowledge.
It's just so bizarre.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre. But that's what lymphatic fluid is. And it is, as you said before, you are filled with it. It is abundant throughout your entire body.
So what are some other misconceptions that you would just love to clear up?
Probably the biggest one is that lymphatic drainage is hard. Drainage. You're trying to drain it out of you. You need to use some big, hard tool on the body. Your body, my body, is doing lymphatic drainage right now. It's working without us even thinking about it, just like our heart pumps without us having to think about it. And it does need help. But again, that firm, hard pressure can often do the opposite, because with that superficial lymphatic system, you'll be flattening or decompressing or slowing down that lymphatic flow as you're applying all that downward force. So that is more so when anything is used with a downward force pressure of tool, that is more so contouring.
Right. So what about like that Brazilian contouring thing that we see everywhere? So
again,
you're saying that's not really lymphatic drainage?
Not really, no. It's more so contouring. So it's moving fluid around, obviously. And, I've trained some girls that will do lymphatic drainage first and then follow on with contouring. But you need to always make sure that you've worked and activated those lymph nodes and got everything flowing before you can move tissue and get a result, if that makes sense.
Totally. Yeah.
I think it's pretty straightforward, but it's like until you point it out, it's like, oh, yeah, now I get that.
It's kind of like anything that's like good. Sometimes we think like the harder we do it, like the better it's going to be. And that's just like not the reality of so many things.
Yeah, we're in this space of bigger, better, faster, louder.
Yeah.
But in actual fact, less is so often more.
I love all the other little hacks that you've mentioned, like, even like before doing your makeup, like there's different little things you can do to your face which are going to help to like lift and like brighten. What are like some of your favorite little like hacks?
So the cups that I mentioned before are amazing for that exact reason. Cupping really helps to lift and brighten the skin. Not only are you draining away that waste and the toxins or anything excess fluid that's under the tissue, the skin that you don't want, you're also bringing in that oxygenated fresh blood and glow from within the skin when you do that. So cupping's amazing. And then the other one is, as most people have seen, apart from that Spock move around the ear, the other one more commonly known is activating the final point of return. It's just like a major part of your lymphatic system, which is right near the collarbone, activating there. Probably I'll say another misconception is that you just whack it or slap it or tap it, but you actually have to be very gentle. It should be a nurturing, slow process as well of activating those nodes. Again, it's nature. You need to give it a moment to work.
Oh my God, I love that. I feel like that's just like breaking down so many like misconceptions already that I've had, and I'm sure most people listening have had as well. So when someone's walking out of your treatment room, what would you say are some of the like most common pieces of feedback that you receive?
So there's 3 things that any of sort of the team that we have or girls that I train elsewhere that I'll say, that you have given an efficacious, solid, perfect lymphatic treatment when someone says to you generally 3 words. And I always say, don't put the words into your client's head. At the end, ask them how they feel. And they will say, some people say all 3, but it's always 2 of the 3. And they are lighter, leaner, clearer.
And don't we all want that?
Don't we all want that? Exactly right.
I think lymph is going to be like my next like biggest obsession in my whole wellness thing.
Love it.
Do you have like an ideal daily routine, wellness routine? What does an average day look like for you?
I actually don't. Do you know what? And I know when this is all coming out, a year or 2, what's your routine? And I'm just very honest and open, sometimes to my own detriment, but I'm like, I actually don't have one because no 2 days are the same for me. And I think maybe I'm not the most methodical person in the world, and some people are, so I can be a bit random. So that maybe might be so, but also it depends. My day starts with the night before, so it depends what time I got to bed the night before. Did I make sure that my phone wasn't next to my bed and charged in another room? Like, did I read a little bit to help my mind switch off before I turned off my light? All those little things. How was the quality of my sleep to determine what time I got up the next day? Unlike you, I've been through that phase of maybe being woken by a baby or what that might be. So we all have different stages and things. So
you're actually the second guest I've had on recently that has said that, and I actually really love it so much, because what this previous guest said was like she wakes up and goes off like her intuition for that morning. What am I needing today? Do I need like a high-powered workout? Do I need to like slow down and meditate? Do I need to just like get to work? Like,
totally agree. Kind
of almost taking that pressure off of being like, oh, my morning wasn't successful because I didn't do my 10 minutes of meditation. I didn't have time for my dry brushing and I didn't do this and do that, I think it's a really great way of reframing this whole like daily routine thing.
I love it. And I think that we all know there's 50 million different things we can do. And so just choose what's in your toolkit and do that one thing. And for me, sometimes, Tess, it's as simple as I have next to my basin in the bathroom a carafe of water and having 1 or 2 glasses of water. I do love coffee. That's my guilty pleasure. And so I always make sure that I've had water before I drink coffee, and trying to have food with my coffee, because we all know that's not a good thing either.
That's one thing I need to improve. I'm not going to lie.
But yes.
Yeah, that's a good one. B, I've absolutely loved our chat. I feel like there's so much juicy information in there. I love ending my episodes by asking our guests to leave a little verbal entry in the Tess Talks diaries. So what would you like to leave behind?
Thanks, Tess. I think that I would say that life is definitely a marathon and not a sprint. Play the long game and make sure you've got a good dose of resilience and grit in there too.
Bang. I love that. I feel like there's more to come. Thanks so much, B.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks so much for listening. If you loved the episode, please subscribe, rate, and review. It honestly means so much and helps to keep these conversations going. And I'd love to connect with you. You can message me on Instagram or TikTok, and I've left all the details from the episode in the show notes below. I'll see you next week.